Today I wanted to talk about how well the BYD brand is doing here in Australia and explain about what is going on with the company that is actually importing the BYD vehicles to Australia, because they just sold almost their entire company to an Australian company called Eagers, another well-known company here in Australia, known for running car dealerships. And Eagers is a very big company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they seem to be muscling their way into the EV business and doing very nicely, I would imagine. Let's just cover what BYD is for those that don't know about the brand and figure out how well they've done here in Australia so far. And then we'll go over what is generally going on with the company. BYD is currently the second most sold EV manufacturer here in Australia last year, second to Tesla. It has been producing vehicles, not just electric vehicles, in China mainly for years. BYD, the company, was actually founded in 1995 as an electronics company, and in 2002 they purchased a vehicle company in China and began building a brand in the Chinese automotive sector. By 2010, it was the sixth most popular vehicle brand in China. That's how well they've done. So since then, they now sell a lot of their cars around the world, not everywhere though, mainly in China, especially with the new electric vehicles being so popular and now so in demand. They're doing fantastic in terms of making money. They have been selling their EVs here in Australia since July 2022, so last year. And last year they sold 2,113 vehicles, of which they only had the second half of the year to sell them, and also a market that didn't know of them. So they've done all right so far. They only had the Atto 3 for sale here then, and that's relatively cheap compared to the Tesla and a lot of other brands, because they tend to be kind of more expensive premium brands for sale in Australia, at least for the last couple of years. This year so far though, Tesla have sold 18,559 vehicles in Australia. BYD have almost sold 7,000 vehicles so far too, so that's brilliant. That is up until the end of May, so from January 1st until the end of May. So that's very good. However, as the interest in EV vehicles has picked up this year and there is clearly a demand for more affordable EVs, BYD will likely be doing very well in the second half of this year, because they just released the BYD Dolphin. I was at the launch event for that. I made a video about that, so I'll put that in the description below. And that's a lot cheaper than the Atto 3. It's something like $10,000 cheaper. And because they will be releasing the BYD Seal in about a month or so, roughly somewhere in August, anybody that orders a Dolphin or BYD Seal will get them later this year at some point, which is going to really alter these figures. As a side note, total EV sales so far in Australia until the 1st of June was 32,000 vehicles. So somewhere between 80,000 to 100,000 by the end of the year, we'll expect. Total EV sales in Australia last year was about 33,410. So we should be seeing at least double that this year, at least. So what does the $70 million deal mean from the company called Eagers? The Australian company Eagers was founded by Edward George Eager in 1913. Basically, these days they set up large vehicle showrooms amongst other things actually, and they have already purchased a big chunk of the company EV Direct in Australia. So they owned about 50% of EV Direct, and then they recently paid another $70 million to raise their stake up to about 80%. So basically EV Direct was set up to bring EVs to Australia, and then very quickly sold off almost all of itself to Eagers, who will quite possibly over the coming years want to buy the company outright. The plan is to get the vehicles as quickly as possible off of the ships. and then bring them into a building and into showrooms, into the hands of customers, so that there is not time for them to get dirty and dusty and have things growing and have things like seeds and stuff get into them, because this is a common thing. We don't want cars sitting in dockyards for 3 months. It is also noted that the demand will rise dramatically, so there needs to be more suitable space for customers to come and view vehicles. As it is now, you just have to go to small, tiny places to look at them relative to some other dealerships. So it would be nicer to have these big stores where you can go and sit in vehicles and have more of them around so you could test drive them, for example. So it sounds like a huge deal, I think, $70 million, but often in business or when dealing with high volumes of anything, it isn't as much as it sounds. So, for example, the $45 million pot of money that the Queensland has set aside to give people the $6,000 rebate when they buy an EV will only last 7,000 to 8,000 vehicles, which will most likely run out in the coming months. So a few thousand people buy an EV, $45 million vanishes. So it sounds a huge amount of money, but when you're dealing with vehicles and paying huge bills, I think in business like this, I'm sure some people are making a lot of money, but I'm also sure that it will a lot of it will go on the cost of the cars and all sorts of other stuff. Thanks to the people that have joined on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon or YouTube memberships, and links to these will be in the description below. So your support enables me to continue creating these videos, which involves dedicating a significant amount of time to thorough research. The cheapest and easiest way by far to help is to just press the like button. This signals to YouTube that people appreciate the content, which makes a substantial difference. So your support helps me also spread information to promote the adoption of EVs, particularly in the more cheaper, affordable segment that requires a boost. Thanks again, and let's carry on with the video. What do we expect from BYD in the future? That was a question I thought I should answer in this video. 80% of vehicles sold in Australia last year came from China. It's a massive, massive, massive market. And actually 25% of the vehicles that were sold in China last year were electric vehicles. So they're doing very well in China themselves. And half of the world's EV sales currently are in China. It's a bonkers big market, kind of a bit baffling. So generally all we know about things that's going on in China is through the mainstream media. Hence, one of my missions is to bring a lot of clarity and to fact check everything and to just make sure that I'm giving you things that are highly evidenced. So here in Australia, we're just starting to sell large numbers of EVs. BYD have announced 5 more vehicles to come to Australia over the next 12 months. This is a big deal, part of the reason why things will change a lot in the next year. The next one in about a month or so, so the BYD Seal, as I may have said before, then the BYD Ute, which is still not formally released anywhere in the world yet, but we have seen some pictures and leaked footage of the BYD Ute with camouflage colours all over it, all over the paint and stuff to hide the design of it. So this will most likely do very well in Australia, very, very, very well. In fact, the fuel saving alone will make the Ute sell really well, I think. After that, there'll be a more swanky version of the BYD Atto 3, a more premium sort of SUV. So I suspect it's going to be the BYD Tang, but I'm not sure. If you enjoyed the video, then please click the like button for me so that YouTube know that people are enjoying it, and subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles. And also just remember the links will be in the description below.